Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's SLC representation call. Thank you very much for joining us. Just some housekeeping for us to go through. Well, just to introduce myself, my name's Matt and I'm working at SLC representation, and today we are joined by Creative Travel, who are going to talk to us about what they do and the kind of itineraries that they create. So some general housekeeping. The call will run now. We will ideally try and keep it to about 40 minutes or so. We may run over, some apologies for that. We have a lot to talk about. We will have opportunities for questions probably in the middle and certainly at the very end. If you have a question, you should see the Q&A box. So please just put it into the Q&A box and we will answer those questions for you, hopefully in the middle and also at the end as well. What I'm going to try and do now, I'm hoping it's going to work, is I'm going to try and run a poll for you. So the first one should be coming up now. So hopefully, if you are watching via Zoom, you should have a question now. And that question is, tick which of Creative's destinations you've been to yourself. So I'm just going to give everyone a couple of minutes to answer that and to go through the different countries. Hang on, we've got a couple more people answering now. Final couple of seconds for anyone. Okay, so just to clarify, 83% of people watching have been to India, 50% to Nepal, 67% to Sri Lanka, 17% to Bhutan, no one has been to Tibet, and 83% have been to the Maldives. So I'm going to end that poll, and I am going to I will come back actually to, in fact, I won't, sorry, ignore me. I will do our second question now. So let me launch it for you now. So have you made a booking with Creative before? Let's see. Okay, so we've got 100% saying no, they haven't made a booking with Creative before, which from our point of view is very exciting because it gives us new opportunities to talk about to new people. So I'm going to hand over to Akash and Varun now, who are going to talk to you about Creative Travel and through JungleSutra as well. So Akash, I'm handing over to you now.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Namaste from India. I hope you are having, you're all well. I know it's troubled times. Thank you for taking your time and joining us this morning, for this webinar on Creative Travel India and the destinations that we, that Creative Travel and JungleSutra look after. So I'm going to, start sharing my screen now, and I'm going to, I'm joined by my colleague Varun, who heads the jungle. So Varun can introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Varun Mathur. I head the brand JungleSutra, Wildlife and Experiential Journeys for Creative Travel. It's a new brand and it offers very exciting products which are, which largely revolve around wilderness and wildlife escapes. And I would love to share some details about what we do and how we do it. So yeah, without further ado, Akash, please take over.
Thank you. So we're going to, close our videos for better bandwidth, and we're going to share the screen now. Thank you. I hope everyone is able to see this screen. Okay. So Creative Travel, we are a family-run business. We are a largest privately owned travel company in India. It's a family story since 1977. So we started our operations in the year 1977 in a small garage, and slowly and steadily we are now managing full-fledged DMC operations in 6 countries, which is India, Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. Backing us, we have about 79 global awards and a team of 170 plus team members with one passion of creating unique itineraries, experiential itineraries, and to deliver top quality service to all our mutual guests. For us, a journey is not about the places you visit, but the stories you bring home to share. So that's the ethos that we live with. Now, I'm going to talk a little about our experience in the sense that we talk about Creative Travel as a traveler-made DMC partner. So from inbound perspective, we've got 2 brands with us, which Creative Travel, the parent company, and JungleSutra, which is the virtuoso preferred on-site. As I mentioned, we bought 79 global awards. We have about 22 World Travel Awards as well. And we focus basically on delivering unique experiences in all the regions that we cater to. Okay. I've already mentioned India, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Tibet, and Maldives. On the left-hand side, you can see the lovely office that we have in Delhi NCR. Okay. So for us, creativity is a way of life. We aim to surprise you. We aim to be different. We really want to think out of the box so that we can curate some exceptional experiences basically for the guests. When I say experiences, we really mean that we want to touch lives. It's not a made up experience that we really look up to, but something that we can make the guests feel associated to the local lives and the community out here. And we've spent many years in basically getting to know our destinations, okay? Which is why we are one of the most South Asia's most awarded destination management company. So some basics, wanted to highlight this basics of traveling to our region, especially India at the moment. Now for 169 nationalities, we don't need any visas as such. The link is mentioned here. We just need to log into the link, fill up the information, pay, and within 72 hours, the e-visa is in the email box. Of course, there are some formalities which the guests would in turn would have to do when they arrive into the country, but I think that takes not more than a couple of minutes. Traditionally, October to March, which is our winter season, is traditionally the high season to travel to. April and September are decent weather as well, but then May and June, like what we're experiencing now, is about 40 degrees of heat. So these are not the best advised times to come into the northern part of the country. Having said that, there are some regions which still enjoy decent weather, because India, if you say it's 3,000 kilometers north to south, approximately the same from east to west. So it's a huge country. And July to August, we are getting into the monsoon season here. And the chart on the right, if you see, it gives you basically a graphical summary of which months are the best to travel to our destinations. Varun probably can elaborate.
I would like to add something here.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm quickly going to talk from a wildlife perspective. July, August, September are months to be avoided because a large number of parks in the country remain closed for monsoons. There are some parks which remain open partially, but they can close at any minute depending on the weather. So ideally, we would like guests to travel between October and March. However, if you have photographers who are interested in, photographing the big cats, and if you have people who are who are willing to sacrifice a little bit of comfort for fantastic wildlife viewing, the summer months themselves can be wonderful, because the water bodies shrink and there's a lot of animals which come down to the water holes. So May, June are excellent from wildlife sighting perspective. But it's going to be north of 40 degrees and it is not a very desirable weather to be out in. But so keep that in mind. But it does offer fantastic opportunities to photograph tigers in waters, elephants swimming through a river and things like that. So it can be a very exciting time for the right client, of course. over to you, Akash. Sorry, I just wanted to get that across.
No, thanks, Varun. Thanks for adding in. Okay, so we see that India is a journey of the senses. It is the sights and the sounds. It is about taking in the smells and experiencing the emotions. It is about the warmth of the Indian hospitality and the friendliness towards the guests. It is about immersing your senses in the surroundings and letting the uniqueness of the country take over. So for us, I mean, we believe that traveling to India is a life-altering experience and basically a trip of a lifetime for many. And you travel, taste a lot of good food stuffs. I mean, we are famous for our gastronomy, we have culinary tours right across the entire country. I think northern region has a different cuisine to offer versus south. The Maharashtrian cuisine is totally different. So different parts of the country offer different variations to the palate. Same is different chants you hear, the smells or the aromas you basically smell, the touch and the vision, the sights you see, which makes every moment a very different, unique, and memorable. So that's what we call India as a journey of the senses, truly. To give you a glimpse, I am going to run a short video out here, which is incredible.
First time in India?
नहीं, दूसरी बार.
India, incredible India.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. This gives you probably some sense of what India has to offer as far as the variety is concerned. The different senses we talked about that the guest touches when they arrive into India and they take the Indian experience. Okay, so moving back to what creative travel is, our USPs. Like I mentioned, that we are a full service DMC, equally competitive in the 6 countries that we cover and the Indian subcontinent. Whatever we do is completely tailor-made to the needs of our partners and the guests. So we curate those itineraries, those experiential itineraries as per the guests and the partners' requirements. Our relationship with the hotels, our buying volumes across the region and our linkages allow us to get the best negotiated prices, which the best values are then transferred to the partners and eventually the guests, which then make you competitive in the market. We have an in-house product and experience development team. Main focus of this team is just to reach out to different vendors and suppliers, seek out new itineraries and products. One such example is something called as Crafted by Creative, the engaging journeys, which I will talk about in a slide which is following this. Also, we have a 24/7 emergency contact number, which is managed by a senior team member. So in case on ground, if the guest feels a need to connect with anybody in the VRs as well, that number is reachable. Also wanted to highlight that we have a 0208 hotline number, which is available for people who dial in from UK. So if somebody is speaking to a guest, if you're speaking to a guest and want to take clarification on a particular query, you can just pick up the phone and dial in through the number, which will ring onto my desk, and I can quickly answer that question for you. Important thing also to highlight is that we have our own fleet of vehicles, which help us maintain and deliver consistent quality to the guests. It is a huge advantage because the own fleet with the quality and the consistency and the drivers who are on payrolls makes it really convenient for us. Of course, depending on the volumes, we can't really have everybody be given our vehicles, but our priority is to first use our vehicles and then outsource if required. The other parts of the country, like maybe South India, etc., we may have to outsource because of presence of a limited fleet out there. I was talking about Crafted by Creative, the engaging journeys. These are, this is something that we, came up about last year. I think it's the second year in operations at the moment. These are unique itineraries which we have tastefully and very, very carefully drafted and curated. They are expert-led journeys, which means that they're led by people who are celebrated in their fields of expertise. They are the subject matter experts in those fields. They would lead the tours for us. The small intimate groups will never be more than 12 couples. Having said that, we guarantee the journey with minimum 2 guests. So that means you can run it as an FIT as well. And we'll have a comprehensive inclusion, the cultural interactions, the cuisine, etc. Now, when I talk about the experts, this really is the soul of the product, because those experts, like we have a celebrity Bollywood fitness expert who is leading our yoga and wellness tour in South India. We have a food historian who leads the culinary journey across. So these are fixed departures because of the contracts that we have with these resources, but it doesn't limit us to operate these journeys on those departures only. We can curate, white label something, a specific set, depending upon the availability of those, or failing which we'll find out more, in those experts in those fields. Matt probably will have the, he has the soft copy. In case you're interested, you can reach out to Matt, or you can reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to give you, the brochure out to you. Okay, so which leads us to our next bit, which is the experiential journeys. So when I said these are experiences which we have curated to enhance the journeys, we're not deep diving into the kind of itineraries that you can do in India, because that's a vast topic. Like I mentioned, India and the subcontinent is a vast territory to cover. So we want to sort of give you the thought of how you can be different in your approach towards selling India as a destination. What are the unique experiences that you can touch? When I say experiences, like I mentioned in the previous slide, they are not, really made up. They are actually, we make a point that we focus really on touching lives, giving back to the community. We really take the vendors or suppliers on board, keeping in mind, what kind of sustainability angle they bring in, or from a responsible tourism perspective. So a lot of thought and goes into signing up those experiences for our guests. So I'm going to start one by one. I'll be very brief and discreet in the experiences, because we have lots to cover here. First is community kitchen. Now, this is a free experience. I mean, this is practically something that we offer to every guest who lands into India. So this is a Sikh temple that you visit. You visit the community kitchens and help the, in general, the public in preparing the food and then serving to the community. Now, Sikh as a religion, they believe in serving the community irrespective of the social and the financial status. So you're really getting involved with that, with that agenda, with that theme. You're getting yourself immersed in that experience and understanding life from their perspective. So that's what the community kitchen experience is in Delhi. Now we have another one in Old Delhi, which is a food tour with a chef. Now Old Delhi, as most of us, I mean, I saw that 80% of you have been to India, would agree that Old Delhi has a lot of street food joints to offer, and I'm sure you would have been there, you would have been to some of those joints, so to taste the different food items. But this journey that we've created with the chef is understanding the science behind the food, because this is an element. Food is an experience, so to say. You touch 3 times in a day. So for an itinerary which is 5 days, let's say, you're touching that experience 15 times. So that's the most touched experience. So for us, it's important for us to, or for the guests to understand the science behind what they're eating. Okay, and also visiting the age-old stores or the joints, the fast food joints. Some of them are over 200 years old as well. We end this tour, we have rickshaw rides in this tour, but we end this tour in a spice market and talking about the different spices. Okay, and you can add on various, the pigeon catching, kite flying, those kind of experiences to build on, depending on how much time the guest has in the itinerary. Now, another experience touching the culinary angle is the garden to table foraging for food experience in Lodi Gardens, wherein you travel with an expert who's really, an expert in the Delhi's ecology and flora. So he'll take you to a round of the Lodi Gardens. You pick up the fresh ingredients, the herbs, and you bring those herbs out to a nearby restaurant and cook those the dishes, and understanding, Delhi's ecology and basically the the science again behind these herbs, and why are we using those herbs and spices in our cuisine. So that's really an experience which most people are really really cherished to be a part of. Varun will take you through Varanasi.
So keeping in line with what Akash has been talking about, what we are going to do is take you through some of the cities and some of the experiences that work well with guests, and the reasoning why we do this. Varanasi is a very important destination when it comes to itineraries, the popular itineraries to the Indian subcontinent. And so we have some interesting experiences, and the idea is to showcase skill sets, to showcase traditional art forms, be it performing art or any other kind of art forms. So in one program that really does well in Varanasi is textiles. It is not a shopping experience. We are not taking you to stores, but I don't know if a lot of you are privy to the information that a large portion of international silk scarves and a lot of silk is procured from Varanasi and Banaras. So we do take you to handlooms, to handlooms where craftsmen are working on these items. We would like to showcase the skill set that is involved, and the kind of the kind of conditions that they are working in. This also gives back to that local community a little bit, and we'd like to contribute towards that. Akash, if you can move to the next slide. Keeping in line with this, Banaras is also it's also home to a different segment of traditional Indian music, and there is a very different type of traditional music and musical instruments that originate from Varanasi. So not only do we curate programs where you can interact with musicians, people who teach music, but we also take you to interesting, little stores where people are actually manufacturing musical instruments. So this is very much we want that the touch feel factor to be part of every experience. These craftsmen, though, they don't seem like sophisticated musicians, performing traditional concerts, but at the same time, they do have amazing amount of knowledge to be able to produce these instruments. Almost all these instruments today are handmade. There are no large scale factories that are there. So it's very interesting to see a craft which could be a musical craft which can be seen from a very different perspective, from a musician's perspective, from a teacher's perspective, and also from a craftsman's perspective. Can we move over, Akash, to the next slide? Similarly, again, these are some of these experiences a lot of you may have already experienced yourself. Banaras is also home to lots of traditional gymnasiums where traditional wrestling is performed. This is the way Indians used to keep fit. This is one of the traditional sports, and it is very much alive today, and it's part of a day-to-day life in Banaras. So we start early morning, and you visit some of these traditional locations, and you see how their warm-up is not a traditional stretching. They would warm up by loosening the soil, which hardens over the day. So every morning they'll come, they'll loosen the soil, they will stretch out before they get into using very traditional forms of clubs or batons, which are different types of weights that they use to exercise before they actually get into the wrestling aspect of the sport. And it's quite interesting to just take out a little bit of time from the daily excursion to watch them do this. Now, moving on from Banaras, we would like to touch upon Agra. A lot of people do visit Agra. It is a very important stop, primarily to see the Taj Mahal. But we have these are just some experiences that we want to highlight, which can add value to the right guest. There is a very interesting bear and elephant rehabilitation center. There is an organization called Wildlife SOS, which operates throughout the country, and they are largely rehabilitating wildlife that has either been domesticated or has come into conflict with humans for whatever reason. And they would provide them a home and then try and rehabilitate them in the forest. Now, not all the animals can be rehabilitated. So they have two major centers here, one for the elephants, which have been, part of the circus industry. So Wildlife SOS has gone there and they've bought all these animals from the people who were in this practice. And at the same time, they've given those people alternative means of employment, maybe given them a tuk-tuk or opened a little corner store from where they can sell goodies, just so that they have something to do. Otherwise, they'll go back into the forest and catch an animal. And it can be anywhere from a half-day program to a 7-day voluntary work for rehabilitation. Now, I must mention at this point of time, yes, in case of elephants, there is some interaction, but in case of the bear sanctuary, there is absolutely zero interaction with the animal. So you are actually working towards rehabilitation. And what you are trying to do is get them to learn the senses that they lost back. For example, when the bear is taken away from the enclosure and you go and you drill holes in the trees and you put some honey in there, the idea is the bear has lost its sense of smell. It needs to learn how to scavenge food. So they need to be able to climb the trees and find the honey. So you are curating these unique games with them to try and help them gain that sense of curiosity, the sense of survival. There will be a lot who are beyond repair, but again, you want to get them back to as close a natural stage as possible. So it's a very unique experience for those who may be inclined towards such experiences. Akash, can you get into other experiences that we do around the region?
Yes. Thanks, Varun. Okay, so moving on, we will talk about life in a local village in Agra. Now, this is again a community initiative that we have tied up with. This walk was created with an NGO Cure with the USAID, to benefit the local communities around the Taj Mahal. So on one side, we have the Taj Mahal, the magnificent monument of love. The other side, we have the agriculture community just across the river. So this walk is, wherein you will be taken along, with an expert, a local guy from the village. He will talk about the community, how they live, the main source of livelihood, the agriculture, and then you basically enjoy some tea and pakoras on the rooftop of the villages. Pakoras, basically knickknacks on the on the top of the village houses, and whatever money that we generated out of this experience is it's put into the sanitation of the villages, children initiatives, and women empowerment. So that's again giving back to the society kind of initiatives and the walk that we've created there. Jaipur, we do an early morning cycle ride. Now, the best way to see the old city, I mean, those of you who've been to the walled city, it's how chaotic it is. It becomes after, let's say, 9 o'clock when the shops start opening up. So this tour helps us to understand the architecture of the old walled city. There are various pockets of different markets. We have the jewelry shops, we have the wedding shops, we have the flower markets, we have whatnot. I mean, we have the spare parts, motor vehicle repair shops. So understanding those architecture and why they existed in such times, since the times of the of the Maharajas. So, and also passing by some of the famous food joints, stopping over for some knickknacks, some breakfast, visiting a famous temple out there, participating in a morning ritual we call Aarti. After that, moving towards the vegetable and the flower market, and then returning back to your hotel for breakfast in case anybody wants to. So that's an experience which gives a little, adventure and cultural insight into the city of Jaipur. Again, this one is an experience that we've created with the City Palace. Now, with which you have a private access to the private quarters of the City Palace, which is where the current Maharaja is also staying in. You visit the various rooms, the green, the blue room, the mirror room, the gold room, and while touring the entire private quarters, you can enjoy a glass of wine or champagne and see the famous lilac table that Princess Diana had also dined in, on the top left picture. India, as you know, is very famous for its Bollywood industry. So we try and give a glimpse of that industry out to the guests. We take them to a single screen theater, wherein the guest can experience what happens in a movie theater like that. It's not a multiplex, so people just whistle their it's a local the craze towards their favorite Bollywood actor or actress. When they arrive on the screen, they give a thud, they give a a round of applause and all that stuff, so they can experience this depending on how much time they want to spend, and they can come back. So that's an experience that we again touching the how the locals spend their time within Jaipur. Moving on to Jodhpur, it's an interactive experience with the Bishnois, the tribes, basically the Raikas, which exist there. It's a 4x4 jeep drive that you take, and can be done in mornings, concluding with the early lunch, or can be done in the evenings as well, depending on the time of the year you're coming in, because of the sun, which is a prominent factor, because these are like open jeeps, and you're mostly in the sun. And while doing this, you can actually see the experience the village life, have interactive sessions with those villagers, and some local wildlife that is available there. That is nilgai, the blue bull, chinkaras, black bucks. So that's an experience that gives you a holistic view of the entire Jodhpur, the desert city out there. One such experience that we are trying to regenerate, it's sort of a dying art. It's a unique art experience in Udaipur. Now, only two people from the Brahmin community in Udaipur can do it, can perform this. So what happens is they create a base and they paint literally on water with insoluble colors. So I mean, if you wobble the water, it's shaky. So only two people, like I said, they have stencils from many generations, and we're trying to see how we are able to contribute by including these enriching experiences in the journeys that we prepare, curate for the guests. Moving on to Mumbai. Now, Mumbai is we've just included one experience because that's something that is really fascinating, and most people really associate Mumbai with it's a commercial hub for India. Yes, it is, but the behind the scenes, the sort of a back office, early mornings, like you picked up from your hotel at 5 o'clock, you go to the fish auctions, which is on the docks, the Sassoon docks, the wholesale auctions. Okay, then you visit the newspaper vendors, the you go to the flower markets, vegetable markets, you interact with them, you understand how how it is purchased. I mean, what is the mathematics around bulk purchasing, and getting into, then you sort of have a little interaction with the dabbawalas community as well before going to the flower markets. So that's again an interactive experience early morning, and before I think about 8:30 you're back in the hotel for breakfast. This the Sassoon docks really shut in June and July because of monsoon. Hence, this experience cannot be offered during this time. Now, Nadi Shastra is again something which is pretty unique to South India. The astrology in Tamil script is practiced following basically in Tamil Nadu and Kerala as a region is concerned, and they will predict, the people who's practicing the Nadi Shastra will predict the past, present, the future. So we try and build in this experience to give a little different feeling to the guest who's visiting that place, to understand faces the astrology, the past, the current, present, and obviously how the future is going to be. So a little inquisitive tour, I would say. Like for what we do in various parts of the country, we have one experience in Delhi, we have Mumbai, Jaipur, many other cities as well. We have something which is called as Vanakkam Madurai, which is again visiting the temple city during the dawn, by the dawn basically. So you again visit the flower, vegetable markets, interact with the villagers, participate. There's somebody milking the cow. You just take that experience, trade, understand how the trade happens between the different vendors. So that's a different experience altogether, because it's important for us to touch lives and see how can how do they contribute to the economy. Okay, Varun, you want to talk about bamboo rafting?
So this experience is a very cool experience. There is Periyar Tiger Reserve, which a lot of you would have heard of if you've been to Kerala, and this experience was brought in about 10 to 15 years ago, or maybe slightly more than that, and it was largely curated to find alternate professions for poachers. And so what used to happen was there was a lot of poaching that was prevalent in this area, and the government thought, and these are it's actually the villagers who go in and kill, because they cannot make meat, they cannot make enough money, and they would kill a tiger or an elephant at a very low price, as low as $100-200, and they would be willing to kill an animal. So what the government thought was, why don't we get these people who know the forest so well to lead tours? So what they started doing is they started paying them, slightly more than this, this amount, just to lead walks every day. And it's a very unique landscape because, Periyar is named after the river Periyar, and there is a dam which has been put on the river, and the reservoir that forms has islands, and the wildlife exists on the islands. So in this program, you actually get onto a bamboo raft and you go from one island to the other, and then you walk across the island. It's a full day experience. Meals are served, at the edge of the water body. But it's interesting because, you're walking in the tiger reserve. It just lets you explore things in a very different way. And I'll get into walking safaris when we get into the wildlife part of the thing. But, it's a unique experience. You get to see so much more than what you would otherwise, if you do a boat safari or a jeep safari. So I'll expand on this once we get into the wildlife part of it.
Thanks, Varun. So moving on to Alleppey. Now, Alleppey, again, one unique experience is what we've curated for the women empowerment there. Started in 2000 with the Lion Ladies Club of Alleppey. So what they do is we have sort of tied up with them. They want to preserve the character of the town. That was a huge motivation factor at that point in time, and they conduct those tours. I mean, the ladies conduct those tours, and whatever money that we generate from this Alleppey Heritage Walk is again used for the women empowerment and upliftment. So that's a must experience once, for the guests who visit Alleppey and down South Kerala. Home dining experiences, multiple locations, we can do that anywhere in the country because of the relationship with the chefs and the royal families that we have, or maybe the bureaucrats. So we can easily arrange those home dining experiences with the family interactions, understanding the stories of those families and the access to the kitchens. So the dining and the cooking sessions can be arranged in multiple locations across the country. One such unique experience is dine with royalty. Now, we had many princely states before independence, about 550 plus. Okay, so those noble families still exist. The ancestors' stories are there to be told to the guests who visit them, and the the people, the hosts, would be opening up their extending the hospitality through the kitchens and the food, and the guests can actually interact with them, understand the history of the royalty which existed erstwhile. So it's a very enriching experience, and we have many families across the country, doing this. So easy access, to this experience as well. Horse safari tours. Now, this is something very, sort of unique to India in the sense we have been doing this earlier, but from a tourism perspective, I'm talking about same day and multiple day tours. So people who really want just an experience can take a same day kind of a tour. The best part about this experience is that we visit the off the beaten paths. We really go into the deep villages, understand again a lot of interactions, food being served there, and like I said, can be stretched for those people who are really equestrian, interested in equestrian itineraries. Can actually extend the tour, multiple day tours that they can take up this journey between Jaipur, Jodhpur, Udaipur, etc. So pretty wide experience to offer there. Now, you may not be really familiar with the self-drive holidays out in India, but India is also a dream destination, for a destination for a lot of self-drive holidays, which are basically you can drive in your own vehicle, of course, with international driving lessons, and go into the destinations which you would otherwise not thought to go. Example, the off the beaten Leh Ladakh kind of stuff. The snow-covered mountains that we have. So you can, and the experience is, curated in such a way that there is proper ambulance and the maintenance vehicles also. So all the health and safety measures are taken care in this entire journey. So we can do it from 2 packs, two guests onwards, and also for a small group which can customize easily. Okay, so good for people who are into adventure. So India has that option to offer as well. Now, that's about India. Probably Matt, you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Akash. Hi, everyone. It's Matt from SLC here again. I just wanted to offer you the opportunity now to type any questions you have into the Q&A box that are specific to India. There will be another opportunity at the end of the session, but if you have anything particular relating to anything that Varun or Akash have talked about so far, please just drop the question in now and we can answer those for you. Akash, I do have a question here for you that someone has asked around wellness and yoga, and a question around what kinds of yoga and wellness tours can Creative organize?
Well, I think, when the times took, in the current times, I think, yoga and wellness tours are something which we are seeing as well with a high interest as far as all the partners that we work with are concerned. So India, as you know, is the country which gave, or probably the birthplace for yoga and Ayurveda. So wellness is really close to, to India as a destination. So a lot of wellness retreats are available within India. Some of the unique ones, or probably most marketed ones, are Ananda in the Himalayas. We have Atmantan, we have CGH properties beautifully planned, like the Prakriti Shakti, Color Rasayana, and we can do multiple locations as well with a traveling, so to say, the the Ayurvedic specialists. So right from north to the south, we have multiple locations. The wellness tours and the yoga tours can be arranged. And in fact, down south is good for Ayurveda, and Himalayas, wherein we have in Himachal or Uttarakhand, is very good for yoga sessions as well. We have handled many tours in the past as well. So definitely, all kind of tours related to wellness and yoga are possible within the Indian landscape.
Thanks, Akash. Another question that we have is, what would you say is the right kind of client for India as a destination?
All right. So what we have from our experiences, what we have heard or seen is that India, for most of people who are traveling into India, it's a trip of a lifetime. In the sense, they are mature travelers. They have visited a lot of other places before. In the sense, they have been to Southeast Asia earlier, Thailand, Sri Lanka, maybe Egypt, Jordan. That's when they talk about coming to India. So essentially, it's a mature destination. From UK, we have a lot of history associated to it. So the typical client would definitely be a well-traveled people, mostly in the 50-55 that we generally have been seeing. So age group typically has been that. But having said that, we have tours which offer which are available for the teenagers. We have a lot of trekking itineraries. We have, like we said, that it's a self-drive holidays also possible. So as far as offering to the market is concerned, we have a lot of propositions, but uniqueness or what typically has India has offered is about the age group of 50-55.
Thanks, Akash. Another question we have is, do you need any injections?
I mean, if you really ask me, I mean, we still have yellow fever as a part of listed in inoculations. If you say injections coming to India,
that is only for if you're arriving from the 7 countries,
correct,
not from UK. I have answered that question though. I've typed it out, but you do not need any inoculations. But it's still advisable for you to check with your doctor. I do know of many guests who carry malaria medication, but here in India we do not take any medication for malaria. But nothing is required as such. You'll have to check with your general practitioner whether you should be taking something or not.
And another question. Sorry, Varun, you go.
Akash spoke about is largely for people traveling from Kenya.
From Kenya, no, yeah.
Yeah.
From African countries.
There are 7 countries which are mentioned. The UK is definitely not part of it.
Absolutely.
Where there is a chance of carrying yellow fever back to India. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And another question we have is, which UK tour operators do you work with?
Okay. So, I mean, obviously that information is something, we work with most of unique tailor-make operators, ranging from a lot of virtuoso and traveler-made companies as well. Is this question related to a particular name as such?
I don't know. That's all I have in terms of information.
Okay. So, rather like keep it discreet that way at the moment.
All right, everyone. So we will come back to questions at the end. You can ask any more that you think of then by typing them into the Q&A box. And you can type them as you go along, and we will answer those for you.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so we are going to touch briefly the other destinations that we cover as well. I'm not going to get into too much of details as far as the visas or the general housekeeping or other requirements as such to visit those countries, but it's just to give you an idea of what all things can be arranged well in those countries. Definitely, all the logistics can be taken care of. So one such experience is traditional Panchkanya welcome. I'm talking about Nepal. So this is an experience which by default goes into all the itineraries that we curate for Nepal. So wherein the 5 virgin girls who are considered auspicious as per the Nepalese tradition, they're there and they welcome the guests in their hotels. So that's something that we offer as a unique experience out there. Now, another experience is a Everest heli tour. Now, that's an experience that we proudly say that we were the pioneers in arranging in Nepal. And back in 2006 is when the first tour is what was arranged by Creative Travel. So what happens is you picked up from the Kathmandu airport, you fly into a place called Kongde. So that's where we have a large, beautiful breakfast setup, available there. You can then hop onto the shuttle because the air is thin on the Kala Patthar or the Everest base camp. 3 people to 1 helicopter. You fly in, stop over briefly, have a lovely, mesmerizing view of the Mount Everest. Best views actually come from the place called Kala Patthar, which is a little away from the base camp. So you land into Kala Patthar for a quick pit stop. The helicopter engine will still be switched on. Hop on back and come back to Kongde, and the other guests can follow. So that's the usual itinerary. And once the breakfast is done, you can fly back to Kathmandu. This is done in the morning hours only because afterwards the visibility and the weather conditions really are a challenge in that area. Moving on, this one is the trekking adventures in the Everest region. We have a good amount of experience in arranging the Everest base camp treks, trek to Gorakshep, trek to Everest base camp, like I mentioned, which is called Sagarmatha, and also the Chomolungma, which is also another trekking adventure, along with the Annapurna ranges, the fishtail. So a lot of itineraries that can be arranged for adventure seekers out there, multiple days. So now, motorbiking off-road experiences. This is typically another one for adventure seekers. Now, from high hills into the Great Eastern, the plateau that we have there is Tibet. So you can actually, ride a motorcycle from Kathmandu actually into Tibet. So that's a pretty enriching experience for those. I mean, it's a variety of landscape that you actually see. So people really love this experience as far as Nepal's experience is concerned. Now, another one which is in Pokhara is an interaction with a Gurkha veteran. Now, Gurkhas are the Nepalese soldiers who have actually served in the British and the Indian Army. So I'm talking about 150 years, 200 years of history. So you can actually interact with a Gurkha veteran out there in the Pokhara Museum, understand the history of those wars, and basically take a deep dive for those who are really interested in the British and the Indian lineage as far as Gurkha regiment is concerned. Now, another experience is we have the hidden kingdom of Lomangthang, popularly known as Mustang, the Trans-Himalayan landscape, which is dry, arid desert. So it's about 370 kilometers north of Pokhara. So it's pretty far of experience there, but it's a very unique upcoming tour. It's only started in 1992, and sort of very, like I mentioned, it's 370 kilometers north of Pokhara. So from accessibility point of view, we have to better prepare the guests also, because the flights don't land straight into Mustang. So, but otherwise, it's an experience that that gives the variety of landscape again. Like we have Lake Ladakh in India, the north of India. Mustang as a region is similar as far as the topography of the region is concerned, but little detour is what you need to take. Honey hunters of Nepal. Now, people who are basically for the livelihood, they are climbing up 300 meters. They're actually hanging themselves from 300 meters bamboo ladders and using a stick to actually collect the honey. So it's it's a pretty fascinating sight. So like I said, it's a unique experience because you actually are appalled by the speed and the courage of these honey hunters. So these kind of experiences is something that we try and curate for our guests, because Nepal usually is about Buddhists, it's about Everest, it's about the mountain flights. So these kind of experience put a differentiating angle towards the when you're actually proposing to the guests. Not from an access point of view, it's pretty easy to reach from Kathmandu as well. Now, moving on to Tibet. Now, wanted to first give you a little background of what So to getting into Tibet is concerned. Now, Tibet, to get a visa, if you're coming in from Kathmandu, you need to stay minimum of 4 working days in the main city of Kathmandu. Otherwise, you come in via China, because it's a part of China. But it can be easily arranged if you're staying in Kathmandu for 4 days. The permit can easily be arranged. But one experience that we offer to most of the guests, all the itineraries, is the Lungta, the wind horse, which is considered as auspicious because it's got association from Tibetan Buddhism, the 5 animals which are printed on it. So we just released those these horses, the wind horses, in the air, and they usually done at the start of the tour to bring in good fortune. So it's for people who are traveling in a group, it's a good exercise as well, and they all enjoy it. Now, really, if you want to see the Mount Everest up close, is where you can see it from Tibet, because you can easily access up to 25 kilometers away from the main base camp, which is Rongbuk, which is like I said, 25 kilometers is 16,500 feet above the sea level. You can actually drive up. It's about 700 kilometers away from Lhasa. There's a beautiful monastery. I think from a perspective, 16,500, the highest monastery in terms of the height above the sea level, is located there, and there are some stay options available. Like Nepal, we have multiple trekking options, around Makalu or the Everest region, alongside the Nepal border. That's where the peak of Himalayas are. Now, the Shal village, located just next to Lhasa, from sustainable tourism initiative perspective, is something that we have curated. Now, basically, you're visiting this village, which is inhabited by the nomads who live with their their herds of sheep and animal during the winters, and during the summers they actually travel across in search of the green pastures. So it's an experience. You can actually come down and interact with them. We can have a lunch, well laid out lunch there, and whatever money that again we generate is dedicated towards the upliftment of these nomads. Moving on to Bhutan, probably one of the countries with the highest happiness index. So again, with village tours and butter tea making, the traditional butter tea, what we also call as suja, you interact with the villagers, understand the way of life in Bhutan, the simplicity of the villagers, understand the cultures and traditions, and learn the butter tea making. So that's an experience which will last about a couple of hours. Can be done any time of the day, and can be done in most of towards the western Bhutan, so to say. So we're talking about Thimphu, Parapunaka, Bomtang. So we can arrange that. Traditional hot stone bath. Now, this is something that is available in all homes, I would say, and all the hotels also offer this. The therapy actually has a lot of medicinal benefits for joint pains, hypertension. So depending on the kind of hotel you are staying in, the quality of the experience would vary, but that's an experience that is must recommended once you're there in Bhutan. Cooking sessions like what we do in the rest of the regions that we cater to or are present in, we can arrange in almost all the cities in Bhutan, wherein you actually go out with the host to the market, wherein you interact with the farmers again. You buy the vegetables from the farmers, and you collect those vegetables back to your home, back to the host's home, and prepare those local Bhutanese cuisines. Like the famous ones are the momos, the imadachi, the shakampa. So very enriching, very very fascinating experience, because you're catering to both the angles. You're actually interacting with the locals, and you're learning. You're actually participating in a cooking demonstration and dining experience. Now, Thangka paintings can be arranged when you're there in Thimphu. Thangka paintings basically are made on cotton and silk, and they depict a Buddhist deity, usually used for meditation purposes. A lot of religious significance. You can try your hands on, learn the painting, how to paint it, and take one back as a souvenir. So that's one experience there. Moving on to Sri Lanka, most of you would be familiar. The Tuk Safari is something that we arrange with in Sri Lanka, Colombo. Basically, understanding the hustle bustle of the city. These tuk-tuks are specially made by this company, and it has all the amenities from the guest perspective. You end this tour, on the beach, basically, when you witness the sunset. So basically, preferred during the sunset time. Something that you arrange, that we can arrange for you. Now, Mark Forbes, a famous personality out in Sri Lanka, curator. He's a photographer, researcher. He'll take you to Colombo City Walk, and you can see Colombo City from his eyes. It is definitely a commercial hub for Sri Lanka, but he'll take you to the internal lanes, again, the spices, the trading, and the heritage of Colombo City in general. So that's a walk that can be curated with Mark Forbes. While we are in Ella, you can actually trek up to a fascinating place wherein we can arrange a signature tea tasting tour and an organic farm lunch for the guests. So there's a waterfall that there's a sort of a hidden location where guests trek up and suddenly reach a waterfall. With organic lunches that get arranged, and obviously we can arrange a tea tasting session. So people really cherish and really enjoy this experience. Now, most of the guests who are in Kandy, we try and offer this experience with Raju and his daughter. They are most distinguished artists in Kandy and Sri Lanka, so to say. We can spend some time with them, understand the artwork. So those who really are into art and philosophy, they, we definitely include it. But for the other guests also, time permitting, we try and include this experience as well in Kandy. You can see the collection of work of the artwork and have an interactive session with Raju and his daughter. Now, Anuradhapura on two wheels. Now, the expert will take you to the lesser known trails. Anuradhapura, as you know, is an ancient city wherein a lot of Buddhist influence, history, engineering, and architecture present. We explore the lesser known trails, and what better way to do it and to pedal it up. So that's what we have from Creative Travel, and now over to Varun for JungleSutra. Thank you.
Thanks, Akash. I do realize we are taking up a lot of time. I'm going to try and keep it as quick as possible. So JungleSutra was created by Creative about 6 years ago. And we realized that, wildlife tourism in India was largely around chasing tigers and trying to find elephants, maybe rhinos. But there's very little that everyone knew about the wildlife diversity of India. And even today, I come across so many people who don't realize how much there is in India. So, very few people realize that about 10% of the world's wildlife exists in India, which is less than larger mammals. We have butterflies, dragonflies, we have marine life that people are not exploring. We have wonderful species. So JungleSutra was, basically curated so that we could take you tiger and help you explore wildlife in a very different way, and yet at the same time, disperse tourism, introduce new experiences and new species to wildlife travel. Now, the reason why we have so much, Akash, can we move to the next slide? Akash?
Yeah, so I have already moved in. So,
sorry. So the reason why we have, such a huge diversity of wildlife is largely because we have different types of landscapes in the country. And literally any landscape that you can think of in any part of the world, we have something similar, if not the same. Right from high altitude deserts to mangrove forests. We have a massive, 7,500 kilometers of coastline. We have deciduous forest, rainforest, so there is, and because we have such a huge diversity, we have a whole range of animals that evolved in our part of the world. Now, Akash, if you can move to the next slide. Just to showcase the kind of diversity that we have, there are 38 species of wildcats in the world. The continent of Africa has 10 species. India has the highest diversity of wildcats in the world, with 15 species. There are about 1250 species of birds that you can find in India. Just for comparison's sake, the continent of Africa has about 1400 species. We have 4 megafauna. When I say megafauna, what I mean is animals that weigh 1,000 kilograms or more. So, you have the rhinos, you have elephants, you have wild water buffaloes, you have the world's largest bovine called the gaur. I don't know how well have you explored Indian wildlife. 50% of the bear species of the world. There are 8 in the world. 4 of them can be found in India, including the sloth bear, which is endemic to India, India and Nepal, and yes, Sri Lanka as well, the Indian subcontinent. Yeah. So this is just to showcase how much there is to see. Now, I spoke about wildcats. Now, we all know about the tiger, lion, leopard, but these are some of the fascinating wildcats that we don't think or we do not associate with India. On the bottom right, you have the Eurasian lynx that you can find in India. You have the clouded leopard, you find the caracal. On the top left corner, you have the golden cat, the marble cat. So there are very, very unique species that you find here. On the bottom left corner, you see a very cute little cat called the Pallas cat. This is actually the species that inspired the character of Garfield. So there is wonderful wildlife to be explored. Akash, if you can move to the next slide. In terms of the dog family, we have the wolf, the fox, we have jackals. Hyenas typically are not part of the Canidae family, but just because they look similar, I have included it in this slide. But what I'm trying to showcase is anything that you find in anywhere else in the world, you'll find a similar subspecies, yet very different. For example, on the top right corner, you have Asiatic wild dog, or the dhole, which is very similar yet different looking from what you find in Africa, painted dog. So if you have guests who have traveled that you send to Africa, this could certainly be a great way to, provide an alternate itinerary within our subcontinent. Akash, moving on. There is really a lot that one can see. India is home to wonderful, unique species like different types of civets. You have flying squirrels, you have bat species, you have red pandas. So there is really a lot for one to explore. And at JungleSutra, we are a team of naturalists and wildlife explorers. So we ourselves, even on our personal time, travel for wildlife photography. I would lead tours quite often myself. What I'm trying to say is we do have first-hand knowledge when it comes to wildlife travel. Now, comparing wildlife travel from Africa, which everybody knows, India, I would say, is an evolving wildlife experience, largely because a lot of focus hasn't been given to it. So whereas you have popular tiger parks, which everyone has been sending guests to, those have evolved very well with great lodges and a great team of naturalists. And today, one can do unique experiences around the park. Akash, if we can move to the next slide. What we try and incorporate in our experiences is not just jeep safaris, but also different types of safari experiences, which will showcase a very different facet of wildlife travel. Canoe safaris are excellent to get close to, to aquatic birds, to get closer to crocodiles. You get fantastic photo opportunities of mammals coming down to drink. Traditionally, photographers are looking for a lower, eye level photograph. And when you are on a canoe, you are really down on the ground level. So it gives a very different perspective. When you're photographing things from a jeep, it's completely different. You're moving at a much faster pace. Since you're traveling to remote regions, We organize interactions with tribal communities. Uh, there are a huge diversity of tribal communities in different parts of the country, and they look different. The kind of food that they eat is different. Their traditions are different. So these interactions can be curated anywhere depending on where you're going. We've not only done work with a lot of photographers, we even do sculpture workshop. On the bottom right corner is a image from some of the sculpture workshop that we did. I don't know if some of you know the lady in the photograph. In the larger image is a lady called Mcmann, an exceptional wildlife sculpture artist. She brings her groups in to India. She also takes people to Africa for art work and sculpture work. Excuse me. So we do encourage a mix of safaris just to showcase different elements. Walking safari is something that we would rarely like to put in front. The reason why we do that is we'd like our guests to become participants in finding the wildlife rather than just being spectators on a jeep. I'll give you an example. Akash, if you can move to the next slide. So, on a typical walking safari, we would come across scenes like this. And, we would want our participants to try and guess what happened over here. So I don't know how well you can see it. If you can see my cursor, we actually have a pair of mating tigers that we are following. And of course, we have one over here with the tail that the cursor is on. And the second one is on the other side. Where you can see this is the rear end, you have a tail, and then you have, and how we know that there were two different tigers is looking at the pug marks. Males have a very different shaped toes as compared to females. So it's interesting when you're on a walking safari, you are trying to track animals. Of course, there's an age limit to such experience. But at the same time, it can be very exciting. And the idea is not always to, look for tigers and larger mammals, but it's also for species that get very well camouflaged, be it different species of birds, butterflies, dragonflies, and they are all part of the wonderful environment. And, sometimes going on back-to-back jeep safaris can be quite monotonous and quite tiring for a lot of our guests. And I would strongly recommend that we throw in a mix of these safaris. It brings in a very different element to exploring jungles. Now, some experiences that have been very popular with us over the last few years, and they are also very, very responsible from a sustainability perspective, is our adventure into the upper Himalayas in search of brown bears and snow leopards. This is also a region that is home to Tibetan wolves, to Pallas cat, to Eurasian lynx. So it's a very exciting experience, yet it can offer, it is completely different from looking for tigers. And what we try and do is work with local communities. If you see the bottom center image, it is these people who own the homestay, and they are also our trackers. So what happens when they lead the groups, the money is going directly to the local community, looking for unique wildlife. It is for active travelers, and it also opens up a whole different landscape that people don't associate with India, right away. Trekking in Ladakh. Ladakh is typically been seen as a summer destination. But if you're looking for wildlife, I would say winter is a better time to visit it. It is less crowded, there is better wildlife viewing, and it's just a phenomenal landscape to be in. Akash, can you move into the next slide? We also work with local conservancies like the Snow Leopard Conservancy, and part of the money goes to those conservancies. This here is a experience on similar lines in the Eastern Himalayas, where we focus on birding, and we do put in a lot of focus on the red pandas. And of course, it can be combined with Central India for tigers. We take you into, a very different landscape. You're again at about 9 to 10,000 feet. But this here is a rhododendron forest. You have beautiful rhododendron blooms, wonderful magnolia blooms in this part. You also have, a view to, 4 of the top 5 mountain ranges in the world. You know, you have Everest, you have Kanchenjunga, you have Makalu, Lhotse, all visible from the naked eye from this part of the world. So again, a very, very different landscape. Again, here we like to work with local communities. Akash, can you go back onto the previous slide? We work with the local community. The idea is we are working with small village homestays, largely because we don't want the landscape to change for anyone. It is the local boys who own this landscape. They are the ones who run it. Of course, we have traveling naturalists with your guests who can interact with them, who traveled all over the world, so that they are all on the same page as the guest, and they are able to talk fluently and get the message across to the guests. Moving on from this experience, we have a wonderful birding experience in the Ganga Valley. So what we want to showcase in this experience is that not always do we want to take you inside a tiger reserve. In this particular example, we are taking you beyond Corbett Tiger Reserve. The river is called Ganga. That's why we call it's the river that leads into Corbett Tiger Reserve. But in order to reach this place, you need to hike for about 3 kilometers. You take this makeshift raft, cross the river, and then you hike some more to reach your lodge. So we take you into complete wilderness, but at the same time, this is the region that is home to 50% of India's bird life. Again, a very unique experience. And since you're not within the tiger reserve, you save permit costs. You can do walking safaris inside forests that still have elephants and tigers and leopards, mountain goats. And it takes you back in time how wildlife travel actually used to be about 50 to 100 years ago. How we could explore our forests. It's not about queuing up outside the gates or waiting for somebody to check your permits and things like that. You can be free in a wilderness area, and animals don't see where the park ends and where it does not. So we go a little beyond the parks and try and do a lot to get you closer to the wilderness. Can you move to the next slide, Akash? And then finally, we have a program where for some of our guests, we like to take you beyond the last hotel. There are many places in India where there's no infrastructure. So by using private mobile camps, we can literally make any destination, possible for a visit for our guests. These are the kind of camps, and they are private camps set up. This could be a wilderness destination, or it could be a cultural destination. And the idea is to be able to have access to a very unique landscape, wildlife, communities, which no tourist has gone to till now, because there were no hotels, there were no roads leading up there. And of course, all these places make for marvelous sundowners and things like that. And you'd have butlers and naturalists and historians at service. So it is not the least expensive experience. It is expensive, but at the same time, it's a private experience. It is the exclusivity which one should focus on. So that's a little bit about how we curate programs at JungleSutra. The idea is to go beyond. We can do anything from entomology programs around butterflies. We can do herpetology programs around reptiles and amphibians. And the idea really is, what does your guest enjoy? And in the entire presentation, I think that is the message that we want to bring to the table, that we want to move towards experiential travel, and truly experiential travel, where you tell us what the guest really enjoys. If you do not know India well enough, you can let us know what they enjoyed in their previous holiday, and we'll come up with some ideas for you. So that's pretty much how we operate. Of course, these webinars are too short to actually get in depth into a particular program, but we are open to that should you want to do a one-on-one with us. I think we can open the session to question and answers.
Thanks very much, Farhan. So I do have a couple of questions for you already. The first one is, how easy is it to combine wildlife with sort of traditional iconic sites of India?
So let me begin by saying, how many of you realize that there are leopards living inside Jaipur? There is a wildlife sanctuary called Jhalana Wildlife Sanctuary that is smack in the middle of Jaipur. It may be 10 minutes drive from your hotel. And any of the popular hotels, Marriott's or whatever hotels you use in Jaipur. And so you can start your drive at 6 a.m. By 8:39, you've done your wildlife safari, you're back in the hotel, have your breakfast, wash and change, and go on a city tour. So it can be as simple as that. Today, India is well connected from flights. So, you can pretty much take a flight from Jaipur into central India, into South India, into northeastern India. And these could be 1 to 1.5 hours flight, maybe 2 hours at the most. So everything is very well connected, and talking about, a mix of culture, I would say there are people everywhere in India. I mean, we've got 1.3 billion people. So there is this culture everywhere to be found. Inside the park as well, you have monuments, you have tribes. They have a very unique, there are tribal art experiences that we do where you meet the artist, and they can be an amazing experience right there. So it does not mean that, you have to come specifically for wildlife and you have to go to this remote area and just do safaris. There can be a whole mix of things that can be done. So I think it is very much possible to do a 50-50, 70-30, whatever works for your guests. It just depends on how much information we have about our guests so that we can make the right recommendation. I think that's the key.
Okay, great. And another question I have is, can you talk a little bit about what kinds of accommodation you might expect?
Right. So, like I said, India is an evolving wildlife destination. You have, state-of-the-art lodges in central India, in parts of Gujarat, in Rajasthan, in South India. But at the same time, if we are to, we are trying to expand wildlife tourism to the corners of our country. So in those regions, we have taken, a more sustainable route where we are encouraging the locals to develop homestays. We do give them recommendations. There are hotel partners that would invest in infrastructure there, where they would, set up the lodge, like the Red Panda experience, for example. There was a naturalist who set up the lodge, and now the boys run it. Same as the Snow Leopard Lodge. It used to be a shaky little, homestay, but clean sheets were given, a Western toilet was put in. You still have problems of, water pipelines freezing over, and you need to, pour buckets of water, which are kept in liquid state with an electric rod. But, those are the challenges that exist. And I think at some stage, we do not think you should change the ecology of the place. For example, in Ladakh, it's a high altitude desert. You don't want flushable toilets because there is no water available there. So that snow is the water they have for summer. And if you use it to flush it down the toilets, they cannot do farming in in Ladakh in summers. So we just need to be a little conscious. But in most areas, it is evolving. In Odisha and other places, lodges are coming in. As travel fraternity spreads out, we are educating people as to what exists out there in the world and what we are being compared to. And as much as possible, we are evolving. So you see a lot more lodges coming up. And, some of the lodges, if I share the images with you, I mean, if I just give you a photograph, it can be anywhere in the world. You have everything in there. We do like to recommend lodges that are more focused towards sustainability and being more environmentally friendly, giving back to the local community. But at the same time, everything under the sun exists in India today. So it is changing, but you have to realize that India has been focusing on cultural travel for last 30 years. Places like Africa has conservancies, and they've been focusing on wildlife travel. So they are a mature market, and we are evolving in that direction. We do take inspiration from there. while keeping our elements. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Varun. And just last chance for anyone, if you have any questions relating to creative or JungleSutra programs, just drop them into the Q&A box now, and we will answer them for you before we finish. Just whilst I'm waiting to see if anyone has any final questions, just some sort of final housekeeping. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. I will follow up with everyone individually in the next couple of days as well, just to make sure if you have further questions for us, if you want to know more about any of the things that either Varun or Akash have talked about today. I will also send through the recording, a link to it probably via YouTube, so that you can share that with your teams as well. I will also share with you the code for the rough guide as well. And yeah, like I say, we will reach out to you in the next couple of days just to find out if you need anything else from us. Any final questions then? Please just drop them into the Q&A box. I'll wait one more minute. And Varun and Akash, oh, sorry, I do have a question here. Can we know more about entry into Tibet? Does it have to be a group of 4?
This is governed, the Tibet entry permits are governed by the Chinese authorities. Usually they have, until the last season, they have not been issuing any individual permits, but, it depends, they screen through the profile as such, but the minimum mandate is 4 days that you need to put in, stay put in Kathmandu city, 4 working days. But usually what happens is, we with our, relationships with the Chinese nationals in Tibet, in Nepal, we can get that sorted. We have not had any issues, major issues when getting the Tibet permits as such. And also, just to mention the question that you asked me about the names of the partners, I've answered that in the Q&A box. So in case, people want to just look at it.
All right, everyone,
also,
let me...
The key thing to remember is you're visiting China, not Tibet.
Yeah. Yeah. A further question has come up about Tibet. Can you effectively travel as a couple there?
Into Tibet?
Yeah.
So yes, we have arranged, travel to Tibet as a couple, but the permits, there has been, we've been able to arrange those permits. Technically, you are supposed to apply as a group, but we have been able to arrange it. But in case you only have to apply for a couple, usually they don't issue the permits.
Okay, I think we are now done for questions. So as I said to everyone, we will, I'll personally contact all of you in the next couple of days. I will send you through the link to the webinar so that you can share it. We probably also will split the webinar as well. So we'll give you a link that is the entire session, but then we'll also break it into one just for JungleSutra and one for creative as well. So you have both sessions in case you have specific staff who just want to listen to a portion of it. I will also send you out the rough guide promo code, and anything else you need from us, please let me know when I contact you, and then I'll either answer or I'll also link in Varun and Akash. And Akash and Varun, do you have any final words for everyone?
No, so just wanted to say that obviously it's a big territory that we tried to cover. We've just scratched the surface. There's enough that we can do. I think typically if we talk about Rajasthan, we can do from 4 to 5 hours. But yes, so in case you're interested, you're up for it, we'll be more than happy to arrange any specific webinars, for any specific destination that, like one of the participants, Deepavali, I think she's asked about Tibet. So we're more than happy to conduct another webinar on Tibet in case you're interested in it. And just wanted to thank you for your time, taking out time. And I know it's fetched about 1.5 hours now. So thank you for your patience.
It's a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
I think the key takeaway is that we are moving towards people. I mean, we feel that people are moving towards experiential travel. And that is what we try to showcase, that, you know, there are different themes that you can travel on, different experiences that can be curated. The list is endless. But yes, I mean, as Akash mentioned, more focused one-on-one sessions can be organized. If you're keen, just reach out to Matt, and I'm sure he'll be happy to organize the same.
All right, everyone. So we really appreciate your time this morning, and we apologize for running over, but there's so much, as we've said, there's so much for us to talk about. But we're happy to run webinars on specific products. We're happy to look at specific destinations. Just let us know, and we can follow that up directly with you. So thank you to everyone for joining today, and hopefully we'll speak to you all really soon.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.